My name is Couch Coop, and it's time to have a look at Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 were released as remakes. I reviewed that in 2020. It was a great game, awesome local co-op. We're going to check out some of the modes, see how it runs and what they've removed, put in, taken out, all that stuff. The original Tony Hawk's 1 came out in 1999, and then they bashed out 4 games right up to 2002. They were pretty iconic, and they were also available on the PlayStation 1, Dreamcast and N64. And the interesting thing is the analog stick is taken into account as something you don't have to use. The N64 had an analog stick, Coop. It did. That pad was well ahead of its time. GoldenEye established the first-person console shooter as far as I'm concerned, but I digress. All the original characters are still here to select, along with their stats, and the soundtrack's pretty intact. We noticed a couple of new additions to it. This game is available on Xbox, PC, and of course PlayStation 5. This is Game Pass Day 1, and what you're seeing is GTX capture. I may well go back to this over on the PlayStation 5 at some point, but an extremely easy join-in process, no sign-in under a profile, just straight in on the guest front, all the characters to choose from. Notice you do have Doom Guy and a Wraith down there. I think they came with a special edition, and the other point of contention is the maps and how many you've got to choose from. It's genius. It merges 3 and 4, all of them, so you've got everything to choose from, and there's a cherry on the cake with this, which we'll get to later. Let me also explain the dynamic that you're looking at here with the players. I am over on the left. We had the superstar Lewis in. Turns out Tony Hawk is one of his strengths, to say the least. I got whooped, bro, whooped on every single game mode. We are looking at score attack, one of the favourites to go to. You set the time limit, you set the map, and everyone just goes hell for leather for trying to get that perfect combo. I also did not want to turn that soundtrack off. It is one of the mainstays of the Tony Hawk's experience, so forgive me for the short snippets of actual gameplay. You can skip the track on the old R3 buttons, and you've got quite a lot of iconic tunes in here. Loads of AC/DC, Metallica's in here, some banging hip-hop tunes. It's quite a smorgasbord. Let me try and explain what the addictive element is to the Tony Hawk's game model. Essentially, it's about risk and getting familiar with your surroundings. What I mean by that is working out where you can produce the most tricks in the park itself, and then linking all of that together. At the same time, not falling over halfway through a combo, because it is scrubbed from your score. So it's very frustrating. You also get a red alert on the text, so you can see in your peripheral when your opponent's done the same thing.
Call my mom.
I have also got to give it up for how cool these maps look. I do remember some of them, Alcatraz, San Francisco, and the college. There's sort of vivid memories in places, but the underground game was the one I spent my most time in, so we may even see that rolled out. The score attack also has this cheeky little element of not finishing if you're halfway through a move. So if you know Tony Hawk's well, you can be in a manual or you can be hanging off some ledge, and if you're still going, the window is still open for pointage. That whole element brings a crescendo to the bow, and things can switch up and change depending if your opponent drops something massive that they were working on for the finale. So we figured we should try some other modes, and next up was the classic Graffiti. What this is all about is doing a trick on a piece of furniture within map, and your score then stays on it and it sticks to your colour. Unless the other player comes along and actually beats that score, it will then flip to them. You get a set amount of pieces in the map, and that's scored up with the number at the top there. It's very fun. It's like a territorial system. Is this 4-player local co-op Couch Cube? Not to my knowledge, but I did see a sort of lobby system on that front page when you log in. You may be able to pull in a friend on a local co-op front. I will look into it. Talking of pads and players, one of the modes is called Horse, which is a classic from way back for me because you don't need a whole bunch of pads to play this. This is past the pad. You get a set amount of time to pull off a move at a selected point in the park, and then you switch over. So it's all about doing as much as you can within a tiny area and then seeing if your mate can do better. Almost like a hot seat system. This one works very well, and you should be able to pull more than 2 players into this one. That was always the thing. You could go up to 6 or 8 on the original game. So I may need to come back to this again as mentioned on PS5 because I need to do quite a lot more digging on some of these modes. The tag game is also a super interesting one because you have an arrow telling you where the person is or where you need to be heading to track them down, and you don't really need to worry too much about doing flash tricks and looking for half pipes. This is all about weaving, ducking and diving and getting away from the other dude. I had a lot more fun with this than I remember back on the original game. You heard me mention that cherry on top. Well, this game's got a full-blown map editing system. You construct your own parks or use user-generated ones. There is a whole bunch of other stuff, including a Hawks mode, which involves hiding letters around, and I may come back to what I don't cover on that PlayStation 5 video. Am I happy with this as a Tony Hawk's remake? Very much so. It looks great. It could run a little bit better on the frames. I saw some of that drop. Again, GTX 1660, and I am interested to find out if we have a quality or performance mode over on console. Both of the games are really good, and I think it boils down to your memories of what you were into. Some of those parks are iconic in Tony Hawk's 1 and 2, but the lick of paint this one's had, the reflections, the details, the little seagulls flying off and all the neon lights in Tokyo, as I say, a great day one for Game Pass. On the local co-op front, please stay tuned. I have a very obscure 2016 action ARPG that you will not have heard of that I'm putting on the channel shortly. We've just got the Cyberpunk patch update and then I'll roll that one out. I also did want to make the point, because as far as I can tell, that campaign is not being dipped into on the split screen front within that options menu at the start. You go into multiplayer and then you're given those breakdowns. So it is technically PvP only. I was of course Couch Cube, and I very much look forward to seeing you down there, and Tony Hawk's 3 and 4 is definitely a great split screen video game.